cool as a music equalizer, and I think we should definitely give it a try. Let's go ahead and add a plane. Shift A, mesh plane, scale it to a factor of 8. Here it is. And Control A to apply all transforms. Let's open the transform menu here by clicking Z, and we would need to shift the position on the Z axis by 0.055 to bring it a tad bit up. And then we need to duplicate this by clicking Alt D. This has actually duplicated it, and bring it down to 0 on the Z axis. So we have these two different planes. Let's go ahead and rename so that it's easy for us to identify. Let's go ahead and hide the base plane for now. Okay, so we'll be working with the top plane here. And that's pretty much it for the base plane. Now we need to work on the shading. Let's go to the shading view. Let's create a new element for this, but we don't need the principled BST here, so we are going to delete that. Now we actually need a couple of nodes here, so I'll just go ahead and add those. So we need mixed shader. Here it is. Let's place it here. Transparent, emission, color ramp. We need math. We need Voronoi. Let's search for Voronoi, and we need Musgrave. Now let's go ahead and assign these nodes to the material output. So the output of mixed shader goes to the surface of material output. Transparent BSDF goes to the shader. The emission goes to shader 2 for mixed shader. Now to make sure that the transparent is working, we need to go to the material properties, and under blend mode we need to change it to alpha clip. Then we need to assign color ramp color to the FAC of mix shader. The math value goes to FAC of color ramp, and we need to change it to multiply. And the Voronoi texture distance goes to both of the values for multiply. The Musgrave height goes to the Voronoi texture. Let's select the Musgrave texture and Control T to give that additional mapping node and change it to object. Now you see this nice pattern forming here. We can start tweaking these parameters here, the scale, the randomness. So let's try changing the scale a little bit. If I increase or decrease it, you can see how it is impacting the overall texture. Okay, I think that's enough for the texture work. Let's go ahead and add a camera and set up a view and work on the texture after that. Okay, so let's go to the layout. Let's go ahead and add a camera. Now this is the camera view. Now it's time to animate the movement of these patterns. So for that we'll use a reference object, that would be an empty object. So let's go ahead and add an object, empty, plane axis. So here it is. Let's bring it up. I think the position of the empty axis doesn't matter, because that is something which is just going to animate itself, and that will cause the pattern to animate. Now to animate this pattern, let's go to the shading. Let's select the plane, and under the texture coordinate you see the option to select the object which it needs to refer. So you can see this, you have the option to select the object. So for that we'll just go ahead and select the empty object which we created. Now to animate this, let's go back to layout, get the total number of frames to 240. You can see the pattern is forming, the pattern is actually animating itself. So we are not going to go very wild with the animation, we are going to keep it quite subtle and smooth. To make the animation a perfect loop, we'll just select the first frame. The Y axis rotation, we'll just insert a keyframe. On the 240th frame, we'll again insert a keyframe, and somewhere in the middle. So on the 120th frame, I'm just going to give it 10 degrees and insert a keyframe. So now it should animate itself and then go back to its original state. The pattern currently exists on just one single base plane. Now let's bring out some multiple layers of this pattern stacked upon each other. For that, let's bring cursor to the center and let's go ahead and add another empty object. Let's go ahead and rename this so that it's easy for us to identify it. So let's keep it as stack. We need to add a modifier, that would be array modifier. We don't need relative offset, we need object offset. So we'll just select the object offset, and under the object we'll select the newly created empty stack object. So now you see we have multiple layers of the pattern. We can select the empty object, we can actually bring it up or we can make it go down, and the pattern should replicate itself. So for now we'll just bring it a tad bit up, 0.05 maybe. Okay, let's go to the camera view. Now you can see there's multiple lines forming, and it's just two or three right now. So we can again select the plane, and under the count you can increase it to the number you want it to be. As you can see, it's creating this beautiful pattern. So we are going to keep it at 5. That should suffice. Now let's go ahead and assign some funky looking colors to it. Okay, but for now, since the array modifier is would be causing a little more lag in the overall rendering, so we'll just disable it for now. Let's go to the shading view again. So we need to duplicate these nodes, so let's select all of them and just shift D. That would duplicate the nodes here. Let's place them here, and the color ramp color goes to the emission color. Let's add 2 colors here, neon looking colors, and under the second color let's select something more like purple. We are getting to see two different shades here. I think that's what we need. Let's go back to the layout mode and enable this modifier. I think now it's coming together. You can of course go ahead and change the colors and make it add one more additional color to give it a more neonic feel, but I'll keep it for now as our first variation. Now let's go ahead and work on the plane, the base plane basically. I've actually hidden the top plane. Let's work on the base plane. For that, all we have to do is assign some texture to it basically, which goes well with the pattern pattern which is being animated on the top of it. So for that, let's select the plane. Let's go to the shading view. Let's assign a new material to it, the principled BSDF. Let's make it metallic. The base color, let's bring it a little on the darker side. I think that's okay. I'm going to decrease the roughness a little bit to give it a more metallic finish. We would be needing 2 nodes here, so that would be color ramp. Here's color ramp, and the other node would be musgrave. Here it is. The color ramp color goes to the roughness of principled BSDF, and the musgrave texture height goes to the FAC of color ramp. We could just select the musgrave and Ctrl T. Now you see some pattern forming here. Let's change it to object. I think the pattern looks okay. Now let's go back to the layout mode and enable the top plane as well. So this is how it's coming together. Let's go to the camera view. Here's the camera view. Let's select the camera. Let's enable some depth of field here. So to add depth of field to the camera, we'll refer another empty object. So let's create an empty object and plane axis. Here it is. Let's bring it to the place you want it to be. Now you can go back here and you can select where you want the focus to be. Following rules of third, I'm going to keep the point of focus somewhere here. And let's select the camera. Let's go to the camera properties, enable the depth of field and focus on object, the newly created empty object. So now you can see the focus is on this empty object, so while the other area is kind of out of focus, so it's giving out a good nice feel. Let's go to the render setting, enable these things. So I'm gonna render this animation as our first attempt. Let's see how that comes out. Okay.
Falling into midnight, and I don't wanna feel like you. Drinking in the moonlight, I don't wanna be like you. Something's in the air, now I'm falling down.
That's all for this video. I do hope to see you in the next one. Cheers!